Maureen Ripley spotted the manila folder beside her father's plate the instant she stepped into her childhood dining room. The crystal glasses caught the chandelier light like warning signals, and her sister Katniss practically vibrated with barely contained excitement. Something was wrong. Terribly, devastatingly wrong. If watching families betray the people who sacrificed everything for them makes your blood boil, hit that like button, subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more stories of ultimate justice, and comment below where you're watching from. Let's build a community where loyalty actually means something. Maureen, honey, so glad you made it, her mother Charlotte cooed, guiding her toward the table with unusual insistence. The Parker house roll she'd loved since childhood sat untouched as her father Harrison carved the roast beef with surgical precision. But Maureen's eyes remained fixed on that folder, her stomach dropping with each passing second. "How's the clinic?" Charlotte asked, her voice artificially bright. "Still working those crazy hours?" "Business is good," Maureen replied carefully, watching Harrison's eyes flicker toward the folder. "We've increased our patient load by 20% this quarter." Katniss snorted softly. "All those patients but such a tiny waiting room. Someone should really upgrade your office management." The pieces clicked together in Maureen's mind like a deadly puzzle. Harrison cleared his throat, setting down his fork with deliberate finality. "Maureen, we've been thinking about the future of your clinic." Maureen froze mid-bite, the food turning to sawdust in her mouth. Charlotte jumped in smoothly. "Family businesses need family management, dear. Your father and I have been discussing how to keep healing hands in the family long term." "It's not a family business," Maureen said, her voice barely controlled. "I built it myself." "With our support," Harrison countered, reaching for the folder. "And now Katniss has an excellent proposal that will benefit everyone." Katniss straightened like a predator sensing wounded prey. "I've worked up a business plan to become your practice manager. I'd handle all the boring paperwork while you focus on patients." She leaned forward, eyes gleaming with avarice. "I'm only asking for a 25% profit share, which is really reasonable considering all the growth I'll bring." The words hit Maureen like physical blows. This wasn't a casual Sunday dinner, it was a carefully orchestrated ambush. Memories flooded back, double shifts at the hospital cafeteria during physical therapy school, sending money home to help Katniss through college while she ate ramen in a one-room apartment with furniture rescued from curbsides. Midnight study sessions after 14-hour clinical rotations. The $187,000 in student loans that still drained her checking account each month. "I already have a clinic manager," Maureen said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Charlotte waved her hand dismissively. "But Katniss is the real people person. Remember how she charmed Dr. Wilson at your clinic opening? He barely noticed you were there." Maureen remembered. Just like she remembered Harrison dismissing her academic honors at graduation while photographing Katniss in her cap and gown. She remembered Katniss's temporary help at the front desk last summer that resulted in unauthorized discounts to her sorority sisters and scheduling disasters that left patients waiting hours. "May I see what you've prepared?" Maureen asked, nodding toward the folder with deadly calm. Harrison slid it across with a satisfied smile. "It's already been drawn up by my attorney. Just needs your signature." The trap was sprung. Her own family had conspired to steal everything she'd sacrificed to build. Maureen stared at the legal documents, her hands trembling with suppressed rage. 27 years of invisibility crashed down around her like broken glass. Every birthday overshadowed by Katniss's celebrations. Every achievement dismissed as book smarts, while her sister received new cars and endless financial support. "I can start tomorrow," Katniss clapped her hands together. "I already have ideas for redecorating your office." The audacity was breathtaking. While Maureen had worked double shifts to pay both their tuitions, Katniss had posted Instagram photos from rooftop happy hours. While Maureen slept on treatment tables because she couldn't afford rent and malpractice insurance simultaneously, Katniss had received a brand new Honda Civic for her 21st birthday. These weren't learning mistakes, Maureen had told her staff after Katniss's disastrous summer. These were careless mistakes made by someone who thought rules didn't apply to her. 15 scheduling errors resulting in double-booked treatment rooms. 23 unauthorized discounts. 31 billing code errors that nearly triggered an insurance audit. But the deepest wound was written in their expressions, the entitled certainty that her success belonged to them. Harrison's confident smile. Charlotte's expectant nod. Katniss's greedy anticipation. They'd watched her struggle for years, offering minimal support while lavishing attention on her sister. Now that the clinic was profitable, they wanted their cut. "While I covered your healthcare needs," Maureen said slowly, her voice gaining strength, "I was eating ramen noodles to make my student loan payments. I worked double shifts at the hospital cafeteria to help fund Katniss's freshman year. When you said you couldn't afford both our educations simultaneously, I slept on treatment tables when I couldn't make rent." The silence was deafening. Their expressions shifted from entitled certainty to uncomfortable shock, but not shame. Never shame. "Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning." Charlotte reached across the table, fingers stopping just short of touching Maureen's hand. The dismissal was too familiar, too practiced. Just like when Harrison missed her clinic's grand opening for Katniss's sorority fundraiser. Just like when Charlotte told Dr. Wilson that Maureen was just the medical person at her own clinic opening. Just like every moment of her life when her achievements were minimized to elevate her sister's mediocrity. Maureen's phone buzzed, her clinic manager texting, "Did you tell them yet?" The timing was perfect, a reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. Her staff had witnessed Katniss's summer of chaos, staying late to fix her mistakes. They knew the truth behind the Ripley family dynamics. The stakes crystallized with brutal clarity. This wasn't just about money or management, it was about her identity, her autonomy, her right to exist as more than Katniss's less favored sister. They wanted to consume everything she'd built, leaving her as a figurehead in her own clinic while they reaped the rewards. But they'd made one critical error. They'd underestimated what desperation and years of invisibility could forge in someone's soul. "We can negotiate." Harrison's voice lost its authoritative edge, replaced by the tone he used when business deals started slipping away. 20% instead of 25%. A trial period. Maureen reached for her briefcase with deliberate precision, her movements calculated to mirror the surgical planning she brought to patient care. "Before we discuss this further, there's something you should see." She unlocked her briefcase with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Harrison's confident smile faltered as she withdrew a leather portfolio, the expensive one she'd bought after landing the contract with Denver Sports Medicine, a silent reminder of successes achieved without their help. "What's this?" Harrison's voice held the tremor of a man unaccustomed to surprises. 3 weeks ago, I signed a management services agreement with Colorado Healthcare Partners. Maureen tapped the corporate letterhead. "They're managing all administrative aspects of Healing Hands going forward." Harrison reached for the papers, his brow furrowed. "You can't make decisions like this without consulting family." "Actually, I can." Maureen slid another document toward him. "I've highlighted section 4.3 for your convenience. No family members may be employed in management positions without unanimous board approval. The board consists of myself and 2 partners from CHP." Katniss's face flushed crimson. "You did this on purpose." "I made a business decision based on previous experience." From her portfolio, Maureen extracted a folder thick with patient complaint forms. "These are from last summer when you worked at the clinic." She didn't need to open it, the thickness spoke volumes. But the real devastation was yet to come. Maureen stood slowly, finding unexpected power in towering over her seated family. "This itemizes the $42,000 in free treatments provided to this family over the past 3 years. Harrison's rotator cuff rehabilitation. Charlotte's plantar fasciitis. Katniss's sports massages before her beach vacations. The stunned silence felt like vindication. Their expressions shifted from entitled certainty to uncomfortable shock. While Maureen had covered their healthcare needs, she'd been eating ramen to make student loan payments. While she'd worked double shifts to fund Katniss's education, they dismissed her sacrifices as expected obligations. But Harrison wasn't finished. His businessman instincts kicked in, recognizing the threat to his carefully planned coup. "Your mother called that wasteful charity when she overheard us discussing your scholarship fund," he said, his voice hardening. "Maybe it's time you learned about family loyalty the hard way." The words hung in the air like a curse. Charlotte's hand flew to her throat in theatrical shock, but her eyes held cold calculation. Katniss leaned forward, predatory excitement replacing her earlier confusion. "What do you mean?" Maureen asked, though ice was already forming in her veins. Harrison's smile returned, but now it carried malice. "Let's just say your professional reputation depends more on family support than you realize. Dr. Reynolds has been asking interesting questions about your clinic's stability." The threat was crystal clear. They would sabotage her professional relationships, spread rumors about her business practices, poison the well she'd spent years filling. The betrayal cut deeper than financial theft. They were threatening to destroy everything she'd built through gossip and innuendo. Maureen gathered her documents with surgical precision, her hands steady despite the rage burning in her chest. They'd crossed a line from which there was no return. 2 days later, Maureen's worst fears materialized. Dr. Reynolds, her biggest referral source, cancelled their weekly consultation meeting without explanation. Dr. Martinez from the sports medicine clinic left a voicemail requesting clarification on some concerns about her practice management. 3 potential patients called to withdraw their appointments, citing family recommendations to seek treatment elsewhere. The Whisper campaign had begun. Maureen sat in her office at midnight, cross-referencing appointment cancellations with Harrison's extensive professional network. The pattern was surgical in its precision, every cancelled referral connected to someone in his social or business circles. Her father's influence as a commercial real estate attorney ran deeper than she'd realized. Her clinic manager Carol knocked softly. "The Hendersons called. They're moving their physical therapy to Premier Sports Medicine." She set down a stack of similar messages. "That's 12 cancellations today." Maureen's hands shook as she read through the cancellations. These weren't random patient choices, they were coordinated strikes designed to bleed her practice dry. Harrison was systematically dismantling everything she'd built, using his reputation to poison hers. "There's more," Carol said quietly. "Someone's been calling our patients directly, claiming there are serious concerns about your professional conduct. Anonymous tips to the state licensing board about alleged billing irregularities." The room spun. Maureen gripped her desk as the full scope of the attack became clear. This wasn't just business sabotage, it was character assassination. Harrison was weaponizing the very community connections she'd spent years cultivating. Her phone buzzed with a text from Katniss. "Still time to reconsider our offer. Family forgives. 2 hearts." The emoji felt like a knife twist. They were enjoying her destruction, watching her professional world crumble while offering false mercy. The message was clear: submit to their demands or watch everything burn. But as Maureen scrolled through her patient database, a different pattern emerged. The cancelled appointments were concentrated among Harrison's social circle, wealthy professionals who viewed healthcare as a luxury commodity. The working-class patients, the elderly on Medicare, the single mothers juggling multiple jobs, they remained loyal. Mrs. Davidson, a retired teacher with limited mobility, had actually increased her appointments. "Someone called trying to scare me away," she told Carol. "But you're the only therapist who's ever treated me like a person, not a problem." Maureen's mentor Dr. Winter had sent a different kind of message, heard some interesting rumors. "Want to discuss over coffee?" The battle lines were becoming clear. Harrison controlled the wealthy referral network, but Maureen had built something deeper, genuine relationships based on competence and compassion. The question was whether quality could overcome quantity, whether patient loyalty could survive systematic sabotage. As dawn broke over Denver, Maureen made a decision that would change everything. She wouldn't just defend her practice, she would expose the truth about her family's campaign of destruction. But first, she needed evidence. Real evidence that would prove their malicious intent beyond doubt. The hunt for justice was about to begin. The evidence arrived in an unexpected package. Dr. Wilson, whom Charlotte had claimed barely noticed Maureen at her clinic opening, requested an urgent private meeting. His office felt sterile and threatening as Maureen sat across from his imposing desk. "I need to show you something," he said, sliding a digital recorder across the mahogany surface. "Your mother called me yesterday." Maureen's blood froze. "What did she say?" Dr. Wilson pressed play, and Charlotte's voice filled the room with sickening clarity. "We're deeply concerned about Maureen's recent behavior. She's become increasingly unstable, making erratic business decisions. Harrison thinks she might be having some kind of breakdown. We're worried about her patient's safety." The words hit like physical blows. Her own mother, painting her as mentally unstable to undermine her professional reputation. The betrayal was so profound that Maureen couldn't breathe. "There's more," Dr. Wilson continued grimly. "She suggested you've been financially inappropriate, overcharging insurance companies, providing unnecessary treatments to maximize billing." The recording continued with Charlotte's perfectly modulated voice weaving a web of lies. Maureen was depicted as greedy, unethical, potentially dangerous to patients. Every word was carefully chosen to destroy her professional standing while maintaining plausible deniability. "Why are you showing me this?" Maureen whispered. Dr. Wilson's expression softened. "Because I've worked with you for 3 years. I've seen your patient outcomes, your dedication, your integrity. This woman on the recording doesn't match the therapist I know." He leaned forward intently. "More importantly, I record all my calls for legal protection. Your mother didn't know that." The implications crashed over Maureen like a tsunami. Her family hadn't just threatened sabotage, they'd already implemented it with methodical precision. Charlotte was systematically calling every professional in Maureen's network, planting seeds of doubt about her competence and ethics. "How many others have they contacted?" Maureen asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Your mother seemed quite thorough in her approach," Dr. Wilson replied diplomatically. "But several of us compared notes. The stories were remarkably consistent, almost rehearsed." The revelation was devastating. This wasn't spontaneous family pressure, it was a coordinated assassination campaign. They'd planned not just to steal her business, but to destroy her ability to rebuild elsewhere. If she refused their demands, they would ensure she couldn't practice physical therapy anywhere in Denver. But Dr. Wilson wasn't finished. "There's something else you should know. Your sister visited Premier Sports Medicine yesterday. She presented herself as your former business partner, claiming you'd had a falling out over ethical disagreements." Katniss was already positioning herself as the responsible alternative, ready to step into Maureen's shoes once her reputation was thoroughly destroyed. The entire family had coordinated their attack with military precision. "What do I do?" Maureen asked, her voice barely audible. Dr. Wilson smiled grimly. "You fight back. And you use their own words to do it." As Maureen left his office, clutching copies of the recorded conversations, she realized the true scope of her family's betrayal. They hadn't just threatened her livelihood, they'd already begun dismantling it with surgical precision, using her own trust against her. But they'd made one critical error: they'd underestimated her ability to forge genuine professional relationships. The very community they sought to poison contained allies willing to expose their lies. The war was far from over. Maureen's carefully constructed world collapsed within 72 hours. The state licensing board launched an investigation based on anonymous complaints about billing irregularities. Her malpractice insurance company requested a comprehensive audit. 3 major referral sources suspended their relationships pending resolution of professional concerns. Sitting in her empty waiting room at 2 a.m., Maureen stared at the stack of legal documents that would bankrupt her. The investigation costs alone would drain her emergency funds. Even if cleared of wrongdoing, the professional damage was irreversible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Harrison, "Still time to accept our generous offer. Family takes care of family." The cruelty was breathtaking. They'd orchestrated her destruction, then offered themselves as saviors. Maureen hurled her phone against the wall, watching it shatter like her dreams. Carol found her there at dawn, surrounded by tissues and tear-stained documents. "The Jameson account cancelled," she said softly. "That's our last corporate contract." Maureen nodded numbly. Premier Sports Medicine had swooped in with aggressive pricing, undercutting her bids while spreading whispers about her ethical issues. Katniss's new position there suddenly made perfect sense. She was feeding them insider information about Maureen's clients and pricing strategies. "Maybe I should just give them what they want," Maureen whispered. "Let them have the business. At least some jobs would be saved." Carol sat down heavily. "You know they'll fire half the staff within 6 months. Replace us with cheaper alternatives." She pulled out her own phone. "Besides, there's something you need to see." The screen showed a Facebook post from Charlotte, timestamped 3 days ago, "So proud of our family's healing hands practice. Praying for Maureen during this difficult transition as she learns to share leadership responsibilities. Family businesses require sacrifice from everyone. #blessed, #family first, #healing hands." The post had dozens of supportive comments from family friends, all expressing sympathy for the difficult daughter who refused to embrace family collaboration. Charlotte had preemptively shaped the narrative, painting Maureen as selfish and unstable while positioning herself as the loving mother trying to save her daughter's business. "She posted this before they even made their offer," Carol said quietly. "This whole thing was planned months in advance." The realization shattered Maureen's last hope of reconciliation. Her family hadn't made an impulsive grab for her success. They'd systematically planned her professional destruction while maintaining plausible deniability. Every cancelled appointment, every whispered concern, every licensing complaint had been orchestrated with military precision. Her phone rang. Dr. Reynolds, the one referral source still taking her calls. "Maureen, I have some concerning news. Someone's been spreading rumors that you're losing your mental stability. Dr. Martinez received a call suggesting you might be a danger to patients." The room spun. They weren't just destroying her business, they were trying to have her declared unfit to practice. The ultimate betrayal, using her own dedication to patient care as a weapon against her. "Who's making these calls?" Maureen asked, though she already knew. "Your mother seems quite concerned about your welfare," Dr. Reynolds said carefully. "She suggested you might benefit from extended family support." The trap was complete. Refuse their demands, and they would paint her as mentally unstable. Accept their terms, and she'd become a puppet in her own practice. Either way, they won. But as Maureen sat in the wreckage of her dreams, something cold and calculating began to crystallize in her chest. They taught her something valuable: how to destroy a reputation with surgical precision. The revelation struck Maureen at 3 a.m. while reviewing Carol's meticulously documented evidence file. Every cancelled appointment, every whispered rumor, every strategic attack had been recorded with forensic precision. But buried in the timeline was something she'd missed: the perfect trap her family had inadvertently created. Charlotte's Facebook post wasn't just premature, it was legally actionable evidence of premeditated business interference. The timestamp proved malicious intent weeks before their dinner ambush. Combined with Dr. Wilson's recorded conversations and the pattern of coordinated cancellations, Maureen had everything needed to destroy them. But the real weapon was something deeper: their own words, their own greed, their own entitled assumptions about her weakness. Maureen pulled up Harrison's LinkedIn profile, studying his client list with predatory focus. His commercial real estate practice depended entirely on reputation and professional relationships. One carefully documented scandal could obliterate decades of careful network building. She opened her laptop and began typing. Not a desperate defense, but a surgical strike. The email to the Colorado State Bar's Ethics Committee was a masterpiece of understated devastation. Maureen detailed Harrison's systematic campaign to interfere with her business relationships, complete with recorded evidence of false statements designed to damage her professional reputation. She documented Charlotte's coordinated calls to medical professionals, spreading fabricated concerns about mental health and professional competence. But the killing blow was subtler, a comprehensive timeline showing how they'd violated multiple professional conduct rules while attempting to benefit financially from their sabotage. Harrison had used his position as an attorney to lend credibility to defamatory statements. Charlotte had impersonated a concerned family member while actually orchestrating systematic business interference. The second email went to the Denver Business Journal's investigative reporter, along with complete documentation of the family's campaign. The story practically wrote itself. Prominent attorney systematically destroys daughter's medical practice using false statements and professional intimidation. The third email was the most personal. Maureen sent Dr. Martinez a complete breakdown of Premier Sports Medicine's aggressive undercutting tactics, complete with evidence that their inside information came from Harrison's networking events where confidential business details had been shared. She documented Katniss's role as an information conduit, sharing proprietary client data to benefit her new employer. As dawn broke over Denver, Maureen made her final preparation. She printed every document, organized every piece of evidence, and prepared for the confrontation that would end this war permanently. Her phone buzzed with another text from Katniss. "Mom's really worried about you. We just want to help. Call me." Maureen smiled for the first time in weeks. The concerned family routine wouldn't work much longer. She typed back, "Actually, I'd love to meet. Let's discuss this properly. How about lunch tomorrow at Romano's? Bring Mom and Dad." The response came immediately, "Yes. So happy you're being reasonable. See you at noon." Two hearts. They thought they'd broken her. They thought desperation would make her surrender everything she'd built. They had no idea that their systematic betrayal had transformed her into something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. Maureen Ripley was done being invisible. Tomorrow, she would show them exactly what a cornered predator could accomplish. Romano's bustling lunch crowd provided perfect cover for what was about to unfold. Maureen arrived 20 minutes early, positioning herself at a corner table with clear sight lines to the entrance. Her leather portfolio rested beside her plate, containing the nuclear arsenal that would end her family's campaign of destruction. They entered together, Harrison in his expensive suit, Charlotte adjusting her pearl necklace nervously, Katniss practically skipping with anticipated victory. Their coordinated cream and tan outfits screamed united front, but Maureen now recognized it as the uniform of predators who'd successfully cornered their prey. "Maureen, honey." Charlotte rushed forward with theatrical relief. "We've been so worried about you." Harrison's handshake was too firm, too controlling. "Glad you came to your senses. Family always finds a way forward." Katniss slid into the seat across from Maureen, her smile radiant with triumph. "I brought fresh copies of the management agreement. The lawyers made a few small adjustments, nothing major." Maureen opened her portfolio calmly. "Before we discuss your proposals, there's something you should see." She slid the first document across the table, a certified transcript of Charlotte's recorded conversation with Dr. Wilson. Harrison's face went pale as he read his wife's exact words describing Maureen's alleged mental instability and financial improprieties. "How did you?" Charlotte began. "Dr. Wilson records all his calls for legal protection," Maureen said conversationally. "As do Dr. Martinez, Dr. Reynolds, and Dr. Thompson. Fascinating how consistent your story was across all 4 conversations." The second document landed like a guided missile, Charlotte's Facebook post, time-stamped 3 weeks before their dinner ambush. The premature victory celebration proved premeditated intent to interfere with Maureen's business relationships. Harrison's businessman facade cracked completely. This doesn't prove anything. Actually, it proves systematic business interference and defamation, Maureen replied, sliding across copies of her complaints to the State Bar and Medical Board. I've documented 37 separate instances of false statements designed to damage my professional reputation. Katniss grabbed the papers, her confident mask disintegrating. You can't be serious. We're family. Family doesn't try to have you declared mentally unfit to practice medicine. Maureen's voice remained deadly calm. Family doesn't spread fabricated stories about financial impropriety to destroy your licensing. She produced the final weapon, a comprehensive timeline of Premier Sports Medicine's predatory business practices, complete with evidence of insider information provided by Katniss during her brief employment at Healing Hands. The corporate espionage charges should be particularly interesting, Maureen continued conversationally. Using confidential client information to benefit a competitor violates several federal statutes. Charlotte's theatrical composure shattered completely. You're destroying our family. No, Maureen stood slowly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd finally claimed her power. You destroyed our family the moment you decided my success belonged to you. Harrison made one last desperate attempt. No one will believe this. Our reputation in this community will be in tomorrow's Denver Business Journal, Maureen interrupted. Alongside the police reports for harassment and the ethics complaints I filed this morning. The silence was deafening. 3 predators who'd systematically hunted her now sat frozen, realizing their prey had transformed into something infinitely more dangerous. What do you want? Harrison whispered. Maureen smiled, the same cold expression she'd learned from months of their manipulation. I want you to understand that some battles, once engaged, are fought to the very end. She gathered her portfolio with surgical precision. You taught me something valuable about reputation destruction. I'm simply a better student than you anticipated. 6 months later, Maureen stood in the expanded waiting room of Healing Hands Physical Therapy, watching the morning light paint golden highlights across the Denver skyline. The State Bar's investigation had concluded with Harrison receiving a formal censure for professional misconduct. Charlotte's whisper campaign had boomeranged spectacularly when the Denver Business Journal's exposé revealed the calculated nature of their attacks. The community response had been swift and decisive. Patients returned in droves, disgusted by the family's attempt to manipulate their healthcare choices. Referrals increased as medical professionals rallied around a colleague who'd been systematically targeted. Premier Sports Medicine lost 3 major contracts when their corporate espionage became public knowledge. Katniss had fled to California, her reputation in Denver permanently destroyed. Harrison's commercial real estate practice hemorrhaged clients as the legal community distanced itself from his ethical violations. Charlotte's social standing crumbled when her recorded conversations revealed her manipulative nature to the very friends she tried to influence. But victory tasted more bitter than sweet. Maureen's phone still held dozens of unread messages from her mother, desperate pleas for forgiveness, theatrical claims of misunderstanding, and increasingly angry demands for family loyalty. Harrison had made one final attempt at reconciliation through a lawyer, offering to put the past behind them if Maureen would provide a character reference for his bar hearing. The silence she'd maintained for 6 months felt both liberating and heartbreaking. They taught her that blood meant nothing without respect, that family was a privilege to be earned rather than a right to be exploited. But the lessons had come at the cost of losing the only family she'd ever known. Carol knocked softly on her office door. Mrs. Patterson is here for her final session. She's brought her daughter to meet the therapist who saved her mobility. Maureen smiled genuinely for the first time in months. The elderly woman had become more than a patient. She was proof that healing could happen even after devastating betrayal. Her progress from wheelchair-bound to walking independently represented everything Maureen had sacrificed to achieve. Dr. Ripley, the woman's daughter, approached with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you. Mom was ready to give up before she found your clinic." As Maureen watched 3 generations of women embrace, she realized something profound. She'd lost her biological family but gained something more valuable: a chosen family of colleagues who respected her vision, patients who trusted her expertise, and a community that had rallied to protect her integrity. The afternoon sun streamed through her office window as she reviewed applications for her expanded mentorship program. Young physical therapists from challenging backgrounds would receive full scholarships, funded by her clinic's growing success. They would learn not just therapeutic techniques but the deeper truth she discovered: that being underestimated could become your greatest weapon. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Wilson: "Proud of how you handled everything. Your mother called again today. Still recording." Maureen deleted the message without responding. Some battles were worth fighting. Others were worth walking away from. She was Dr. Maureen Ripley, and she healed people who valued the healing. The silence was no longer empty, it was powerful. If Maureen's calculated takedown of her greedy family gave you the satisfaction you needed, show your support by smashing that like button. Subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more incredible stories of people who refuse to be walked over. Share this with someone who needs to know that boundaries aren't suggestions. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Together we're building an army of people who know their worth.